All right, folks, welcome to Counseling 201. I am Mr. Coleman, Counseling Department Chair and one of your Eagle Leaders Advisors, along with...
I am Ms. Stimac, another counselor at Jones, and another one of the Eagle Leaders Advisors.
So we have for you the responses to all of the wonderful questions that you asked us a little bit ago. We're really grateful for all of your questions. And we're going to do rapid fire style answering your questions throughout this presentation. And if after watching this, you have additional questions, feel free to ask us when we are in the Google Meets or email us directly at a later time. So let's begin.
Okay. How do I make an appointment with my counselor if I wanted to meet them? Best way to do that is email. We definitely, when we're at school, we definitely accept drop-ins for appointments. You can come during your lunch or academic lab. If you would need to see us during class, that would be a situation where it would be like a crisis or something was going really wrong and you didn't feel like you could be in class and you really needed to talk to someone. Otherwise, we really tried to see students during lunch and ACT lab, and the best way to get a hold of us is email. We're also going to talk about how you can make an appointment to see your counselor if we're on remote learning in the fall in just a couple minutes. How often are we able to talk to the counselor? It really depends on what you need. Are there social workers at school or just counselors? Yes, we do have a social worker, Miss Cambry. She is part-time at our school, so she works at another school, so she's there about 2.5 to 3 days a week. Are weekly check-ins available for extra emotional support? Sure, depending on how things are going for you. If you need a little bit of extra support, we could check in weekly. If we feel like you might need more support than we can provide once a week at school, we can also refer you to outside mental health professionals. Is a counselor available to talk if I suddenly feel the need to talk to one? We talked about that. If you feel like you need to come out of class and meet with your counselor, that's fine. You can ask your teacher for a pass. What activities have you gotten involved in at Jones? So I'm actually the sponsor for our school's Key Club, which is a service learning club. How about you, Mr. Coleman?
I'm involved with Jones Pride, our LGBTQA plus student group, along with the other counselor, Mrs. Belkey. I've actually in the last year gotten involved with Dungeons and Dragons. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club at Jones, but I'm part of a group of staff members who get together and play Dungeons every week. And we've been doing that for about 8 months.
Yeah, and actually Mr. Coleman and I are also part of a group of teachers and staff members who work out on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school with Ms. Bowman, one of our math teachers. So that's another thing we're involved in. And then are we able to change counselors if you don't like the counselor assigned to you? That's not really something that we do. Much like you might have teachers that you don't connect with immediately, sometimes you might not connect with your counselor immediately. We encourage relationship development, getting to know your counselor getting to know you, learning about them. If there was ever a situation where there was some kind of obstacle between you working with your counselor, we would definitely want to loop in potentially an administrator or your parent or guardian or Mr. Coleman as department chair to talk with you and your counselor on how you could best work together.
All right. How are classes going to be? Are we going to just do online classes? Are we actually going to school for class? That is a $1 million question. And neither of us have $1 million right now. We're not really sure yet. It sounds as though, the district may be able to offer some guidance the next few weeks, but as of yet, nothing has been made clear to us. So stay tuned. Unfortunately, we have to just see what happens at this point. If schools end up becoming fully online, will we have access to our counselors? If we do we have to schedule time to meet? Yes, if we are fully online, you will have access to us for sure. You just have to reach out to us, email us to check in, and we can schedule a Google Meet. We can schedule like either a phone call or ideally we would work through Google Meet to check in with you to make sure we have a sense of what you need and how we can support you. What are the best clubs to join? That is a subjective question. I think it has a lot to do with, well, what do you want? And what kind of clubs are important to you? The fun thing about clubs at Jones is that you can join them and then decide, yeah, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. And then not, right? That's great. You have a lot of flexibility. We talk a lot about trial by choice. More than anything, we just hope that you will get engaged and find clubs that are meaningful to you. I'm also nervous about making sure I get all my work done, no matter how hard it may be or how much I may not want to do it. What are some tricks of staying on top of things? One big trick is do your A-day homework on your A days, your B-day homework on your B days. If you're trying to switch days, it's very easy to get behind. Organizing yourself, if that's with a planner or with like notes and reminders in your phone, just so you can keep track of your deadlines. And if you need help with that, having an accountability partner like your parents or guardians or some sort of check-in model with your counselor, like these are great ways to stay on top of it, but making sure you're writing things down and you have a clear, concise way of keeping organized is really that.
Mr. Coleman, do I still have you? I can hear you now.
Yeah, do I still have you?
Talking about accountability partners.
What's the last thing you heard me say? Great. I was just accountability partners is the way to go, and then I kicked it to you to say, hey, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Great. Yeah, I think that what Mr. Coleman just said, the most important thing there is the A-day homework on the A days, the B-day homework on the B days. This is definitely something you can reach out to your mentor about what works for them, because the thing about staying on top of your work is different things work for different folks.
And then how would you describe the curriculum of Jones in relation to other schools, particularly difficulty-wise? Well, I would say that, our curriculum is honors, mostly honors and AP advanced placement level coursework, right? So it is rigorous, right? But it tends to be manageable for the overwhelming majority of our students. It's hard to say what's more difficult because everyone has a different learning style and a different learning model and a way in which you engage with the work and the curriculum. But I will say that it's very possible to make it work for you in a meaningful way. And if you were able to get into Jones, right, you've shown a level of academic potential and promise that will likely serve you well. That does not mean that every student that comes to Jones is going to be a straight A student, right? And that you're always going to get A's in your coursework. Many of our students find quickly they may not get A's in all their coursework, and that can be very difficult, but that doesn't mean you're any less of a person, you have any less potential or promise, and you can still be incredibly successful, okay? How long have Mr. Coleman and Ms. Stimac been counseling at Jones? Let's see, I have been at Jones, I've been working full-time as a counselor at Jones for 6 years, and I also spent a year before that as an intern learning how to become a counselor at Jones. And Ms. Stimac?
I have been at Jones full-time for 3 years, but I spent about a year-ish prior to my time as a full-time counselor as a substitute counselor. I subbed in for a couple different counselors when they were out of the office for various reasons. So overall, it's been about 4 years for me. Okay, what advice would you give to someone who has troubles expressing themselves around others and is very shy? What is it that you would want them to do to gain more confidence in who they are and what they say? I think this is a great question. And I think the main thing is that I don't necessarily want you folks to do anything. I want to hear what you want to do. If you're a student who has trouble expressing yourself and you're feeling very shy, what are your goals? Are you looking to be more comfortable expressing yourself? Are you looking to make more friends? Are you looking to be okay with the fact that you're shy? So kind of exploring that would be my first step. I would also encourage a student who is maybe feeling shy, not feeling connected to other folks at Jones to get involved in something. We talk a lot about extracurriculars. I'm going to make a plug for our virtual club fair on Friday, but getting involved in something that you're interested in can help you meet a lot of people. Why are there so many stairs? Because we've got 2,000 students right downtown and we got a lot of floors. What is the dress code? So the dress code at Jones is really, we encourage students to dress in a way that makes them feel comfortable and makes other students around them feel safe, right? So really what you're comfortable in, anything that would have any kind of expletives or any kind of, wording like that is something you might want to think twice about. But if you have questions about an outfit that you might think about wearing to school, you can always ask your mentor. You can always ask a counselor what they think about that and kind of go from there. Any other thoughts about dress code, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is that you'll get a booklet, our student code of conduct will be available to you at the start of the school year. And actually in it, it's a breakdown of the dress code. I will say we have a relatively flexible dress code that really supports a lot of ways of presenting and presentation. But the big point that Ms. Stimac is making is around you do not want to wear any clothing that is disrespectful, racist, sexist, transphobic, discriminatory of any community for any reason. That is clothing that can make others feel safe, and that is not what we are about at Jones.
Yes. When do we get our class schedules? Likely middle to end of August. Do you have the same counselor throughout the 4 years at Jones? Yes, that is our goal, that you will work with the same counselor throughout your time at Jones. We believe it's really important from a continuity of care perspective that once we get to know you freshman year, we continue to work with you until you graduate. Based off past experiences, how could someone get the most out of counseling? In my opinion, I think the way you can get the most out of counseling is to get to know your counselor, right? The way that we function at school is different for a lot of students. Some students need different things from their counselor. So I would encourage you to really make an effort, especially in your first year and your sophomore year as well, to get to know your counselor and to let your counselor know you so we can know how to support you. Additional thoughts on that, Mr. Coleman?
That's great. Absolutely.
Okay. If you were an ice cream flavor, what flavor would you be? I think I would be peanut butter ice cream because I love peanut butter and that's my favorite kind.
Wow. It's hard for me to separate from what my favorite flavor is. If any of you have ever been to Jenny's, I am obsessed with Brambleberry Crisp. And I'd like to think I'd like to think I'm a berry bramble crisp because it's fun, it's great year round, and it has a lot of complexity, but a really fun flavor.
Yeah. And then, Mr. Coleman, what's your favorite candy?
Fruit snacks. I eat a lot of fruit snacks.
And mine is a peanut butter cup. I actually keep them in the freezer. They're really good cold.
Okay. What can you do if you feel that a class is too hard for you? First things, one would be to have a conversation ideally with your teacher and talk about specifically what you feel you're struggling with. Is it the content? Is it the way the teacher is teaching? Is it any sort of peer dynamic in the classroom space? Is it something going on at home or something going on for you personally? There could be a lot of reasons why the class can feel too difficult for you. So ideally, being able to name why that is. And if you're not sure, that's part of where your counselor can come in to help and help you brainstorm issues or obstacles that you might be facing. And from there, we would work with you, if your teacher, likely, and if necessary, maybe a parent or guardian, on a plan for how to support you in getting the help you need to be able to manage the course more effectively. It's not necessarily wrong that the course is difficult, but if it's too difficult and it's overwhelming for you, then it's time that we come up with a plan of action. What is the A-B day structure? So assuming that we are in school, in person, A days, you have periods 1, 2, 3, and 4, and lunch falls somewhere during third period for you. On B days, you have periods 5, 6, and 7 with academic lab at the end of the day, and lunch falls somewhere during the 7th period. Okay, that's the A-B day structure, and we go A-B, 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 generally every day throughout the school year. So it's not days are always A's, right? That's not necessarily the case. We just follow the A-B, A-B, A-B. We do have something called a C day. It's extremely rare, and you'll learn more about that during the school year. What is the CTE program? CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. And that is our program where we have pre-law and pre-engineering. They're both four-year programs where there's students who are accepted to Jones through the CTE program who are expected to either do pre-law or pre-engineering all 4 years. But with both of those content areas, if you're not a CTE student, if you came in through selective enrollment and you'd like to get involved in law and engineering, there are options for you to do so later in high school, and you want to talk to a counselor about how to do that. How's the baseball team? I'm not very good, but I like to try what they're looking for and the talent of the team. I'm not I'm not personally super familiar with the baseball team, but I've known many students who are really interested and eager, and I've had many students get involved. Ms. Stimac, do you have a comment on baseball?
I'm with you there, Mr. Coleman, that I don't know much about the baseball team, but I do know that I've had several students who participated on the baseball team. So,
how often do sports teams have practices in a week? Depends on the sport. Some sports might meet every day. Some sports might meet 2 or 3 times a week. And it depends, is that sport in season or is that sport in conditioning right now? So it really varies. What electives or sports are there for freshman year? Actually, if you go to the Jones website and click on students and you go to the JCP Athletics, you can learn a lot more information about the sports offering. Another plug for our club and activity fair on Friday. We'll have some of the sporting teams talking about what they're up to and how you can get involved. In terms of electives, we have something called the JCP course handbook. If you want to learn some more about the electives that we currently have, you can reach out to me or Ms. Stimac and we can get that to you. But know that when we schedule for courses, you schedule with your counselor in some capacity. When we're scheduling for the next year, we always email out the JCP course handbook to all students so that you can see that, okay? Does each counselor have a separate room? Yes, we all have our separate offices in the counselor's corner. But since we're currently at home, you're looking at my living room, and that is the office, okay? How many times will we have a one-on-one counseling? Is it every week or month? So for freshman year, this is actually really important to distinguish. For freshman year, your first year, you only have one required meeting with your counselor, and that will happen in the fall. And that's a meeting where we ask you how you're doing, check in to see what's going on, how you're transitioning to Jones, and it's an opportunity for us to start to get to know you so we can develop the relationship that will carry us through 4 years, okay? Outside of that, you can see us as much or as little as you want. It's up to you, okay? How do you guys remember all of your students? Well, for me, part of what really helps me remember my students is when my students actually work to create a working relationship with me, and they schedule time to meet with me and we check in. That makes it really easy because I can put a name with a face, and the more you share about your story and your experiences and maybe your family and your interests, I can put together a more concrete picture of who you are and what you're about. If I don't see you and I don't hear from you outside of that one meeting we have during freshman year, it's going to be much more difficult to remember your name, but I may not remember your face, right? And I don't know your story. So it's another reason to get involved and develop a positive working relationship with your counselor. Where did you get started? What is your work background? For me, my background is actually in theater and in sociology. I guess I'm still an actor at heart, but I was acting, and through acting and doing projects for high schools, that's how I got familiar with high schools and working with youth. And from there, I decided that I really wanted to pursue a career in counseling. So I did. Ms. Stimac?
And my background, I have a degree in human development and family studies from the University of Wisconsin. And then I got my master's in school counseling at DePaul. My first counseling job was my job as a sub at Jones. So my work background is really JCP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how will the one-on-one sessions work? How many times will we have a one-on-one session? So our one-on-one meetings, the one mandatory one-on-one meeting of your freshman year is the freshman conference. That'll be a 10-minute check-in. If we're at school, we'll schedule that meeting with you, tell you what time it is. You'll come down, sit down, and we'll just really have a conversation. We'll ask you questions about how your transition to the Jones is going, how you're liking it, things that you think we should know about you. You can ask us questions. If we are not at school, if we're on remote learning, likely we'll do that via Google Meet. So we'll set up a time with you and we'll have that same conversation just over Google Meet. Mr. Coleman kind of touched on the one-on-one sessions. Will counselors help us figure out how to manage our time so we can have a balance of schoolwork and other after-school clubs? Absolutely. If you're struggling to manage your time, if you just kind of want to talk through it with your counselor, we can absolutely have that conversation with you. Are there any emotional support dogs at Jones? I wish I could say the answer to that is yes, but at this stage, no. Can you bring a lunch to school or go off campus for lunch? You can absolutely bring lunch to school. Jones does provide lunch and breakfast for all students every day. When you are a junior or senior, you can go off campus for lunch. This follow-up question says, is there any way for underclassmen to sneak off campus for lunch? Could you get in a lot of trouble for it? Yes, and yes. How often do incoming freshmen get lost in the school building? It can be super confusing to navigate our school with the two buildings. You folks have likely maybe only been there once or twice. So I would say that sometimes, right? I would encourage you, if you're not sure where you're going, to ask somebody, stop someone in the hallway, review our tour that we posted. It might happen, but it won't happen frequently. How many kids are in a class size? If we're talking about like the freshman class, Mr. Coleman, do you know how many we have in the freshman class exactly?
I do not know the exact number. I know that it is near 500.
Okay, so likely between like 450 and 500 at each grade level class, but when we're looking at a like classroom size, typically those max out at around 30 to 32 students, so anywhere from like 26 to 32. And then how do you deal with racism, sexism, homophobia, and other isms like that at Jones? So unfortunately, these are issues that we deal with at our school. From a counseling perspective, when we have students who come to us who have been victims of racism, sexism, homophobia, or if they've heard negative comments, or if they're made to feel uncomfortable, our number one goal is supporting you. Right? We are going to want to talk through what happened and as much as you're comfortable. And then we can also help you advocate for yourself, and we can advocate on your behalf to have action taken. We can reach out to administration. We can reach out to your parent or guardian to help support you, because really we want you to feel safe at school. Any other thoughts on that, Mr. Coleman, before I switch?
Oh, that was great.
Perfect.
What makes Jones really special / unique? I think Jones is a really unique place for a few reasons. One, that we have students coming from all of the neighborhoods of the city. Downtown for a high school educational experience is really special. And it gives us a really powerful opportunity to be able to learn so much about different communities and different experiences, which I think is really special. I also think that I've experienced Jones have a quirky sensibility where many students like march to the beat of their own drum. I know I'm definitely someone who marches to the beat of my own drum, and I just love that. And I love that students feel safe and supported enough often to be themselves and live in their truth in meaningful ways. What about you, Ms. Stimac?
Sorry, did you say something, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah. What about you? Why is Jones really special or unique to you?
Yeah, I think Jones is really special and unique to me, similar to what Mr. Coleman said, in that we are in that downtown campus. And I just think it's really unique because our student body comes from so many different places. You folks all come from neighborhoods across the city. And I feel like I've gotten a really great opportunity to learn a lot from students. And I also think that our students at Jones in particular are super passionate. You folks have a lot of really cool interests and really cool passions, and you're not afraid to tell us about them. And I think that's been really special for me.
Let's see, what is the most amazing thing about being a counselor? The most amazing thing about being a counselor is being able to make a positive impact in the lives of other people. Making a difference and supporting others is the most magical thing that's ever happened to me. I would not be where I am today if I didn't have people who supported me and provided resources and believed in me. And that's something really powerful and amazing that I get to do for other people in my role as a counselor. And that's pretty amazing. It's really special. What about you, Ms. Stimac?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think something that's really amazing is being able to work with you folks across your 4 years of high school. Getting to meet you when you come in to Jones and you're still kind of figuring out what is this giant building? What am I going to do to the time that you graduate and you go on to your post-secondary plan? That's really special for me.
Is it hard to handle a sports team along with keeping a straight A average, or will it bring a lot of anxiety? Well, it depends on you. It depends on your predisposition to anxiety and how you cope with anxiety and stress. It depends on the team, and it depends on your coursework and how you are able to manage them. The reality is, if it is hard for you, I go back. Not if it's hard, but if it's overwhelming for you to manage, you have support. We are there to support you, and we can help you come up with a plan. In your opinions, what do you think freshmen struggle with the most at Jones? I would say, at least early on, it's about the transition. You're at a new school with people that you don't know, with very few people, maybe no one from your old school coming to Jones with you. So developing connections, especially now, like right now we're in a remote environment. We don't know what that's going to mean for the fall, but like that's a whole nother layer of issues and obstacle. But being able to engage meaningfully, and to learn what it means to be around a lot of other students who are super smart and super committed and driven, where at your old school you might have been like the top of your class, right? Understanding what that means to be around a lot of other really capable, powerful, passionate students like you, while also being around a lot of people from communities, and walks of life that you don't know or understand, and trying to manage that. It gets a lot to process and transition into. What about you, Ms. Emick? What do you think?
Honestly, I agree. I think that you said that very well. And I do think that it's the transition that is the biggest struggle that I see with most of our first year students. Mm-hmm.
What the earliest we can arrive at school? That's actually a better question for the mentors. From what I understand, I know the building generally is open by at least 6:30 in the morning. So I would ask the mentors. I will be honest. I arrive at school around 8 o'clock most days, as close to 8 as I can. Some of you might be that type of person too, but it's definitely open at the latest 6:30, if not earlier. How much time do we have to get to our classes? 10-minute passing periods between classes. I've been really nervous about high school. I'm a very social person and I love making friends, but in this new virtual environment, I'm not sure how to bond with people. What would you suggest? Well, something that I know that the mentors are starting to do, your Eagle Leader mentors, are to create group chats, right? And group messaging with the other people in your flight to get to know them. I think if you're in classes, and this has a lot to do, it depends on whether or not we're in person or hybrid, or remote. But get involved in clubs and activities. That is a wonderful way to meet people, especially meeting people who care about the things that you care about and like the things that you like. So getting involved in clubs and activities, and then taking advantage of the groups and structures that your mentors put in place to bring you and the other mentees in your flight together. How is it possible for teachers to meet with 150 plus kids all the time? That's a lot of planning. Well, the reality is it's not, even though teachers have about 150 students, in the same way as counselors, we have about 300 students. Teachers don't meet with all of the students necessarily individually. Often, it's a lot of group instruction or small and individual support as is needed. So it really just is, the teachers are trained educators and they work to assess the needs and differentiate their curriculum and their instruction depending on what you need. And that could be large group, small group, or one-on-one.
Okay. How was quarantine? Was it fun or boring? I think it was both. I think that there was a lot of stress in quarantine. There were a lot of boring times, but I think I tried to make the most of it. I picked up a new hobby. I started embroidering. I baked a lot, so that was fun. How about you, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, you gave the options fun or boring, and I would actually pick option C. Um, it had elements of fun, elements of boredom, uh, but also it's a really sad time, and it's a really hard time. And quarantine is about, in part, it's about global pandemic, um, and the reality that people have become ill and some people have died and continue to as a result of this is a very sobering reality. And it's just very difficult. I am a person that likes a lot of structure in my life, and quarantine and shelter in place has been a real disruption that I think is for the good of trying to support the health and wellness of our global community, but it's had its very real challenges. But I've also taken up hobbies too, and be able to connect with people that I love who are near and far in ways that I would not have been able to otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. And then, folks, as we continue to go through these, full disclosure, gonna be honest, we're gonna have to speed it up because
Yeah.
Mr. Coleman and I are recording this in the afternoon, and I have to go to a doctor's appointment. So the rest of these are gonna go quickly. What would you say is the toughest and easiest year at Jones? Honestly, it depends. Some students have a really hard time with the transition freshman year. Some students struggle sophomore year, junior year, senior year. It just really kind of depends. Do you have any advice on how to handle homework? I think my best advice, Mr. Pullman said this earlier, is going to be do your A-Day homework on the A-Day, do your B-Day homework on the B-Day. Stay organized, use a planner or your phone notes or whatever makes the most sense for you, just so you know what to do when. How many hours of homework will we get every day on average? It really depends on the classes you're taking. This is a great question to ask your mentor in your freshman year, mentor. How many hours of homework were you doing every day on average? Did that change over the years? Is there any formal support for looking through your written assignments for grammar and flow? Also, is there something else just like that for math? To be honest, I'm not sure if there's formal support for written assignments. I know that you can ask your teacher about it. You can meet with your teacher in ACT Lab. And sometimes I know that our English teachers have TAs, the student teaching assistants, who can maybe look through that. Mr. Coleman, do you know about any other formal English
No,
support?
that's about it.
Okay. And then for math, the math team typically offers what they call Math on Mondays, or has been last year, which is math tutoring, math peer tutoring from the math team. So that could be something to look into. Can you choose between math A and B, or is the selection completely random? So if you take math 1, or if you're coming into math 2, the math teachers will place you into either math A or B. The B math just moving slightly faster than A. You will be placed into math 1 or 2, A or B, based on placement tests and feedback from your teacher. But once you get into math 3 and 4, you get to choose. Your math teacher will make recommendations that your counselor can see. So when you meet with us or when you talk with us about scheduling, we can talk to you about those recommendations to help you make that decision. If you are in NJHS, well, you have to reapply to go to Jones NHS. Some details about getting into and participating in NHS. So what I assume we're talking about, I hope I'm right, is the National Honor Society. At Jones, this is an opportunity for juniors and seniors. You have to have a certain amount of service learning hours and a certain GPA in order to be invited to join the NHS. More information about that will come as you go through Jones. And then, is it still possible to switch a class I signed up for? I originally signed up for World Studies, but I was wondering if it's possible to switch to AP Human Geography. If so, how? Our schedule change window will open again in August. Once you folks have your schedule, you will likely get an email from your counselor talking about what the process is. In the past, we've had students handwrite a little schedule change form and turn it in. We will probably be looking at something electronic this year, but we'll definitely give you information on how you can change your classes if you want to, A, and B, if there's room available in the class you want to switch into. These changes will shut off the first Friday of the school year, which is September 11th.
How will the one-on-one sessions work? We talked about that, so we're good on that front. This may be a
Mhm.
little silly, but what types of supplies do we bring with us on the first day? Are there supply lists? Well, for the first day, the most important thing to have is a notebook, ideally a folder and something to write with, and then everything else you need, your teachers will tell you about. There isn't a formal supply list, okay? Will there be fun assemblies and sport games at Jones? That's a great question. The answer is yes, assuming that we're in person in some capacity. If we are still in shelter in place in some way or remote, there may be less of that. But yes, we do fun assemblies. We have dances. We have sporting games. We have our homecoming game. We have a lot of different activities for you. I would like to know if Jones offers any support options to students who may need to take public transport, such as train. So there are supports available specifically for students who are homeless or in transitional living situations. So if that is your situation and you need support, make sure that you let your counselor know. Or reach out if it happens to be during the summer and you need more insight, you can reach out to me as well. What can I expect in an AP class? Big question, and it depends on the class. The biggest thing I would say is that you can expect the class to move much more quickly than your other classes will, because an AP class, advanced placement class, is a college level course, right? So you'll probably have more work to do outside of class, more reading, more writing, more reflection, but also it will move at a faster pace. And for students who went to relatively small schools, what's your advice for coming into Jones when there's so many students? More than anything, breathe and give yourself some time to develop connections, because there are students who came from very large schools who still are coming with almost no one that they know, right? You're not alone in feeling potentially isolated or unsure, uncertain when it comes to developing new connections. So be patient and get involved in clubs and activities. And if you need help and support, reach out. You have your leader mentors, you have your teachers, you have your counselors as well.
Really, the only question I have is the school will communicate with us more about important items. If you'll communicate with us more about stuff in the future, yes. Parents and guardians should have access to, or I'm sorry, they'll receive emails from Dr. Powers, from school administration, communicating important information. We use a system called Naviance, where we will ask all of our first year students to add their parent or guardian emails into Naviance. Naviance is a way that we can send mass emails from the counselors directly to both students and parents and guardians once their information is in there, so you folks don't miss anything. What is the best way to put myself out there? Authentically, right? Come as you are. You are unique and special, and you have your own interests and things. It can be really scary to come into a new school and to not know folks and have to put yourself out there. But I would encourage you just to come as you are. Is there a possibility of joining a team for a sport that's not available at Jones at a different CPS school? I think so. I've had students who participate in a sport that's not at Jones through a different school. I can't really speak to how that process works. Mr. Coleman, I don't know if you know anything else about that.
Not much more than you. We do have some sports that are partnerships with other schools as well. The best point of contact about that would be Mr. Frank Grizzetto, our athletic director.
Yes. My only question would be, does it get better than middle school in terms of the student body atmosphere? Honestly, that depends. I mean, what was your middle school atmosphere like? It sounds like for this person, maybe it wasn't that great. I think that Jones presents a really good opportunity for folks to kind of find their place and find their people, because we've got a really unique and diverse set of students and a unique and diverse set of interests, right? If you are concerned about, how things went for you in middle school and trying to do things differently in high school, or like kind of trying to find your way, but you're not sure how, it's a great thing to talk to your counselor about as well. What's your favorite thing about Jones? Honestly, I think my favorite thing about Jones is the counseling team and the folks that I get to work with. We really kind of function as a family. We spend a lot of time together, even in our shelter in place remote times. We've met and we've been on Google Meet, every week. And I think it's really great for me to work with such wonderful, smart, talented, and empathic people.
Same.
Coleman?
That's absolutely it. I absolutely agree. To be able to do what I love with a team that I love is, yeah, it's priceless. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If any, what rules does Jones enforce with the zero tolerance policy? Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Coleman, but I don't believe that we have any zero tolerance policies.
I think what I would say to that question, because I'm not 100% sure exactly, like any rules that, the biggest thing that I would say for now is that our rules and how that functions, it's probably shifting and changing in the wake of remote learning and what that
Yeah.
implies for us. So stay tuned. On the student code of conduct, you'll be learning more about that before the school year starts.
Yeah, and that the information in the student code of conduct will also be where, or in the same spot where you can find information about the dress code, like Mr. Coleman mentioned earlier. If I need help with a 504 accommodation, is there someone I should talk to in the counseling office or just go to my teacher or both? So if you have a 504 plan, which is a school-based plan for students who have disabilities or impairments that impact their learning and their school, we actually have a case manager at Jones who manages all of that. Her name is Miss Kim Rebecca. And if you need to get in contact with her, her information is on our website. If you have questions about that or you can't get a hold of her, you can also reach out to your counselor and we can put you in touch with her.
I've heard that there are issues with students who feel discriminated or have seen up first some problems with race. There's an Instagram page about Jones BIPOC where students can rant freely about racist encounters they've had with students or staff and they feel that they need to do something about it. How can I feel safe as a Latina where stuff like this exists in my school? We spoke to this a little bit earlier about your safety. One piece about safety is you feeling supported and you feel that you can self-advocate and speak up and speak out if there is an issue that you experience. The reality is that discriminatory things have happened at Jones. They happen at Jones as they happen in the larger communities. And we have a responsibility as a school community to step up and support each other. And we have a responsibility, me, Ms. Stimac, our staff, our school administration, our teachers, we have a responsibility to keep you safe when you're at school. And if you feel unsafe for any reason, it's very important that you let us know. And we take the steps to support you in meaningful, intentional ways that lead to change and repair harm whenever possible. So I think the big reflection for you is at this stage, one of the things to reflect on is, do I feel safe? What do I need to feel safe? Do I have an awareness of people that can support me? And do I have language, words that I can use to support myself or speak up if and when I feel discriminated against? And if you need any support on any of that, absolutely reach out. We're happy to support in our role as counselors. And Ms. Simon talks about what we do as counselors to support students in that situation. But we work together to make our school community as inclusive and as safe as possible. How can I get into the engineering program? Reach out to your counselor. If you have questions right now during the summer, reach out to me and we can talk about what that might mean for you. Does Jones have a class on music theory? We have some AP music offerings, but specifically music theory alone as of yet right now, but things change and we'll see what happens in the future. What's your favorite group Halloween costume you've done in the past? Sami, what's your favorite?
I'm torn between two. One year we did Disney characters and Mr. Coleman and I were Anna and Elsa from Frozen and that was pretty fun. And then this year or last year we did Sesame Street and I thought that was pretty fun. I was Oscar the Grouch and I climbed into a trash can to take a photo. So that was kind of funny.
You can't make me. I love dressing up for Halloween and I love costumes. I love the year that the counseling team did Disney Pixar's Inside Out was super cute. I also really love The Incredibles. And I really love doing Elsa and Anna with Miss Tymek. That was super fun too. And we all dressed up as Disney princesses and villains, and that was super cute. I'm essentially telling you all of the costumes because they're all just so fun. What's your favorite place to eat at that's around Jones? Simon, what's your favorite?
It's not super close to Jones, but myself and Mr. Coleman sometimes, and Mrs. Belkey, one of the other counselors, we did have a Friday Chipotle tradition. There's a Chipotle, like an 8-minute walk from school, and we walk over there, grab our Chipotle, come back to school and eat that for lunch. We eat a lot of Potbelly because it's right by our office as well.
Yeah, I also really enjoy Gino's East. Like I'm lactose sensitive, so I probably shouldn't be having pizza, but it's just so good. I love it, and they have a great lunch special. How do I emotionally survive high school? A big piece there is being in touch with your emotions, being aware of your emotions, learning how to name your emotions when you're feeling good, when you're feeling bad, and how to cope with adversity, cope with obstacle, cope with difficulty, cope with anxiety, stress, difficult feelings. And that's not something that happens quickly, immediately. It's a process of learning and growing and trial and error. And the most important thing I can say right now is that you have support. And emotionally surviving high school is appreciating that you're not alone, that you don't have to do this alone. You're not expected to do this in isolation, that there's a team of support and there's a community around you to help and support you. We already talked about zero tolerance. You'll be learning more about our policies in the Student Code of Conduct.
Okay, and then this was the last question. Do you still think that we will, or do you think we will still have a good freshman experience at Jones with this going on? I put this on its own slide because I think this can encompass a lot of things, right? This could be remote learning. This could be COVID-19. This could be the unrest in our country, the economic downturn, the concerns around racism, police brutality, all of these things that we have seen over the past 6 months. And I think that despite all of this, I do think that you folks can have a positive experience in your first year at Jones. I think it's going to look very different than anything we ever could have imagined, but I know that there are a lot of folks who are excited to have you. Your mentors are going to be there for you. Your counselors are going to be there for you. And though it's not going to look how we might have thought, I think that we can kind of all work together to create a sense of community, to create a sense of belonging that will hopefully make you folks feel like Jones was the place for you.
Yes, absolutely everything that Ms. Stimac said. And if you are willing to engage with us and work toward it being a good experience for you, I'm sure that we can have a great experience. Will it always be amazing? No. Will there be days where it might suck? Absolutely, right? But overall, can you have a good experience? Absolutely. Is the potential there? Absolutely. And we're absolutely willing to work with you to make that happen.
And so that's it, y'all. If you have any further questions about anything we talked about today, definitely ask in the Google Meet today, or you can email us and we'd be happy to answer your question.
All right, that's it. Look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
Bye.